I would recognize the member from Innisfail, Sylvan Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am privileged to represent the wonderful people in the riding of Innisfail, Sylvan Lake. The area is home to families who came here because Alberta had a climate of opportunity that was attractive to hardworking people. Along the eastern boundary of my riding, you'll find the communities of Delburn, Lusana, Elnora, surrounded by rolling prairie and farms and ranches. It might be of interest that in little tiny Delburn, there is a factory named Noise Solutions that builds equipment for NASA space flights, right here in Alberta. These communities were settled in the early 1900s by immigrants seeking a new life and the freedom to own land. Freedom, a climate of opportunity that was unavailable to them in Europe, where feudalism and socialism barred any rights people had to their own land. Moving westward, we come to Pine Lake. It is a small but vibrant retirement and resort community known for great fishing summer and winter. And on the southern part of my riding is the village of Bowden. The Bowden Days Rodeo is important to the area, and local cowboy Kai Marshall placed first in the Canadian Professional Association Bareback Challenge in Bowden this summer. Around Bowden, we have longtime farming families, the Marshalls, the Anderson families, and many others that are known for helping out whenever there's a community event or a community need. Bowden folks are very excited this year to be building their first ever home with Habitat for Humanity. Northward, we come to Innisfail. It is the service hub to central Alberta ranchers and farmers. And here you're going to find some of the oldest Alberta family farms in the province still in operation, farms that have survived drought, depression, hail, BSE, and so far socialist government. Antler Valley Farm, established by the McAllisters, was started before Alberta was even a province. And it is still owned by McAllisters and still producing grain to this day. The Danes family, settled in 1911. It's famous for the Danes Rodeo, Danes Auction Market. We have the Edgar family, founded in 1907. They host the famous Asparagus Festival right here in Alberta in the early spring of each year. You didn't know that, did you? The area is also home to members of the Amish community. And we have the Rainbow and Pine Hill Hutterite colonies, integral partners in our farming community. In the industrial sector of the town, Johns Manville, Canada employs a great many people making fiberglass insulation, and Northwest Pipe is a large supplier to the oilfield sector. Northward, we come to Penhold and Springbrook, two of Alberta's fastest growing communities. It's attractive there to young families just starting out in life. It's also home to Skywings Aviation and the Red Deer Regional Airport. What you may not know is the Red Deer Regional Airport employs 225 people and contributes about $100 million annually to the local economy. As part of its mandate to be the aviation gateway for central Alberta, this airport is scheduled for a runway extension that will permit Boeing 737 service daily to Red Deer. The western boundary is formed by the Red Deer River, where one can enjoy canoeing and fishing and the vista of the majestic Rocky Mountains. You would really enjoy a country drive in the summer to the hamlet of Markerville. It was settled in 1888 by industrious pioneers from Iceland. We have Vikings in Alberta, and they were drawn here by our climate of opportunity. And you have to pay a visit to the historic Stephenson House and enjoy the many flavors of ice cream sold at the Creamery, which ran continuously from 1901 to 1972, and it is still a cafe today. At beautiful Glenifer Lake Resort and Dixon Dam, you can find recreation fun all summer long. It is home to the award-winning Danish-Canadian National Museum and Gardens. And Dixon was originally settled by Vikings, 17 Danish families in 1903. And in the following 10 years, more Viking families were drawn here by this climate of opportunity. Next, we come to Spruce View, settled by, you guessed it, more Vikings. It is the service hub for surrounding farms and ranches, and it is home to the Wild Rose Women's Institute, no connection. Well, not exactly a connection. And longtime farm families, the Hillmans, the Thompson Seed Farm, and many skilled artisans actually live in Spruce View area. And it was also home to the Spruce View Bachelors of Paradise. It was founded during the Depression years of the 1930s because men in the area were too poor to get married, and they're thinking of resurrecting it once again, given the economic climate. It's also home to the Tivoli Garden Cafe, famous for its Friday night authentic Mediterranean dishes. It's owned and operated by Lena and Samir Boussaleh, who came here from Lebanon because Alberta offered a climate of opportunity to make a new life for their family. They just celebrated their 10th anniversary, and my congratulations to Lena and Samir. On the northern boundary is beautiful Sylvan Lake, and on its shores are Norglen Wold, Birchcliff, Jarvis Bay Provincial Park, and the town of Sylvan Lake. Sylvan Lake is a young community with 30% of the population under the age of 19. The median age of our population is only 32. It is rated as the fastest growing rural community in Canada, and our growth averages about 4.5% per year over year, with projections to reach 20,000 people by 2022, just a few short years away. And frankly, our needs for expanded drinking water, wastewater, and 24-hour urgent care have not been properly addressed by the provincial government, even during our boom times. Now, tourism was strangely absent in DeThrone's speech, yet it is a significant economic driver in Sylvan Lake. Our lake is arguably Alberta's most popular water playground, attracting 900,000 tourists annually during summer and winter for ice fishing and snowmobiling. And did I say this town still lacks an urgent care facility? Sylvan Lake is home to Alberta's most enthusiastic mayor, Sean McIntyre. Yes, we're related, but about 200 years ago. And he may have been seen jumping into the icy waters with his fellow councillors during last winter's polar bear dip to raise money for charity. In our area, we also have the famous hockey family, Sutters. They're well known around the town in Sylvan Lake, and Sylvan Lake actually won last year's Kraft Hockeyville competition, and now we're busy building a new multiplex recreation center. And we are also home to two of the world's most famous ice cream stores, Big Moo and More Moo. How many people have been to Big Moo and More Moo, right? Everybody. And did I say this town still lacks an urgent care facility? This riding is home to farmers, ranchers, oil and gas workers, teachers, healthcare workers, manufacturing workers employed in many industrial parks along Burnt Lake Trail and Highway 2 corridor. These are hardworking people, Mr. Speaker, who have invested their lives in this province because once upon a time, it offered a climate of opportunity. They are struggling beneath the challenges of this current economy, aggravated by political instability and the pollution of that climate of opportunity that once epitomized our province. But these are hardcore Albertans, Vikings, many of them, tough people, common sense people that hold to the historical values of family and faith that made this province great. They will not give up, and I am privileged to be their voice in this place. Now, in addition, I am also responsible for the shadow portfolio of electricity and renewable technologies. Prior to politics, I worked at NATE in the Alternative Energy Technology Program. And based on the research we conducted in building that excellent program, I recommend that as this government forges ahead in its green revolution, it must take the time to accurately calculate the adverse economic impact to our already struggling economy. Any successful businessman knows you have to perform a thorough SWOT analysis to really understand your risks, opportunities, and potentials for success. And I have asked various ministers repeatedly over the last number of months for their economic research to table their cost-benefit analysis on the human cost of their energy policies and the economic cost of their economic policies and energy policies. And to date, this government has refused to provide that research. And now we know why. It was never conducted. Worse, this government refuses to accept that without such thorough analysis, they are blind. They neither see the pitfalls, but they also do not see the opportunities right in front of them. The incompetence of this government is profound, and the mounting devastation upon hardworking people of my riding is equally profound. 15 organizations comprised of thousands of business people who grasp the value of research have recently pleaded with this government to open its eyes. Will this government listen to the real job creators or continue to listen to so-called experts who told them last November to trust that oil would be $50 today? Hello, wake up. In addition to economic analysis, it is also absolutely necessary to take the time to accurately assess the human cost in moving forward with economic and green energy policies that can and will destabilize our people and threaten their personal investments in homes, businesses, and even their children's future. The primary responsibility of government in a democracy is to care for the well-being of its people. The overarching focus and litmus test of any energy management plan, including our own, must consider the well-being of all our people. And if I may, I'd like to give this House just a sample of what you could learn if you attended Nate's program in the area of energy management planning. Alberta's electricity system is a complex blend of regulated and deregulated services. Its blended design was intended to provide Albertans and our business sector with stable, reliable electricity priced at a level that was affordable for homeowners and also priced to keep our industry's goods and services competitively priced in a global marketplace. But in addition, the system had to keep pace with our growing population and our growing industrial load, without the need for the Government of Alberta to accumulate debt in building generation or transmission infrastructure. In all of these criteria, our electricity sector has proven successful, and the competitive nature of the balancing pool forced the players to constantly upgrade and improve their efficiencies. And that, Mr. Speaker, is the beauty of open competition in a capitalist free market. By its very design, the players always challenge each other to do better to remain in business. And I should add here that over time, the practitioners of energy management have found some non-negotiable principles which, if followed, can almost guarantee the sustainable success of an energy management plan. But conversely, if even one of these principles is not followed, the plan will not be sustainable for long and it will fail. Now, time doesn't permit me to go into detail here, but please consider at least a few proven principles. Number one, begin by using less. That is the beginning point of any energy management plan. A sustainable reduction in energy consumption through energy efficiency measures throughout an economy has proven to provide more jobs, sustain more economic activity, more innovation, more new small local businesses, and reduce more pollution and energy waste than any other component of a green economy plan. Begin by using less. Two, create a competitive power market that results in affordable and stable energy costs. We already had this. It was in place, and it was working mostly fine up until this government began meddling in it. Recent statements by the Premier regarding the power purchase agreements cancelled by ENMAX and TransCanada provide proof positive this government does not understand PPAs, nor our electricity system, and is systematically engineering the demise of thousands of jobs and entire communities when we can least afford it. Number three, improve energy productivity and energy product quality. What does this mean? Well, there are proven market-ready technologies available to us today whose efficiencies far outperform conventional centralized generation. I'm talking about microgeneration, existing resource wells to generate power, run-of-the-river microhydro, microgeneration using modularized combined heat and power for new and existing developments. These eliminate the need for large transmission infrastructure at efficiencies that are more than double current generation methods. These are significant. These three proven principles I've talked about, and there are more, are also couched beneath two overarching non-negotiable principles requiring that A, the implementation process must do no harm. In other words, the process of transition must not adversely disrupt the economics, workflow, or quality of the region being transitioned. Do no harm. B, the plan must achieve universal buy-in. This step is the most difficult of all, yet also the most important. And unless everyone in the region takes voluntary ownership of the goals of the plan and everyone contribute to the thousands of small and large changes required to reach these goals, the plan will be destined for failure. Forcing a top-down plan fails every time. Ontario is one of many places where that's being proven. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I and my Wildrose colleagues believe we can responsibly take Alberta forward in a manner that capitalizes on our current strengths, our current economic drivers and job creators, and works with them to gently move Alberta to an energy-efficient economy, doing no harm, substantially less reliant on carbon-based fuels, substantially more reliant on sustainable renewable energy sources, substantially more diversified in our energy portfolio, and strengthened by the wealth creation,